Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Carlson Cards Podcast. One of the things I think we all run into as collectors that's a bit of a dilemma is do you go for a quantity, a ton of different cards that you really like, or go for quality? Try to stick to just really specific cards and sets that you're looking for. What I like about today's collector is he is more on the quality side of things. While I'm over here a little more chaotic with what I'm collecting currently, our guest Ben is very, very deliberate in targeting extremely rare and scarce cards that you just do not see. I really enjoyed this conversation. We talked about a lot of different football players and cards that mean a ton to Ben. And it's really interesting trying to learn a little more about how do you go about acquiring cards that are impossible to find while also funding them and being intelligent about it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Carlson Cards Podcast. A fantastic episode today that I'm very, very excited about. I have a guest on today he's a hot commodity. He's hard to get on to talk. I mean, he's so busy and he's got just amazing cards. You know, the paparazzi's out to get him all the time. So I'm glad we can finally make it work in our schedule. Just teasing, of course. But we have on today Ben at Brooklyn Berry Bright on Instagram. We both collect very similar types of cards, and I'm very, very excited to dive into some different players, especially here today. So Ben, thanks for hopping on. How's everything going?
Austin, great to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me. I don't know about the paparazzi stuff, but I appreciate being here, and I really thank you for what you're doing and bringing on collectors on a weekly basis.
Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate you hopping on. Like I just mentioned, it's fun. I love like being able to get face to face now here too. And we ideally would have at the National, but I know you couldn't make it. And so now it's kind of fun. We get to talk and then hopefully, in person when we get a chance, that'll be amazing too, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So I was wondering, Ben, if we could start with a quick about yourself, and then maybe tie in obviously how cards fits into this. But I'd love to just if you could start with a little bit about who you are, maybe where you're from, just get the audience aware of what you're coming in with here.
Yeah, sure. Very briefly, 37 years old. I live in Brooklyn presently. I grew up in upstate New York. I went to Binghamton. I graduated in '08. I did track and field when I was there. Then went to law school at Penn State. I graduated law school in 2011. And ever since that time, I've been doing, I'm representing victims of medical malpractice. So I've been doing that for over 10 years now. In terms of cards, I collected when I was a kid for many years, and I ended up not having anything of any significance, unfortunately, when I went back and looked. And then I got out of it when I was in high school, and like a lot of other people, once COVID hit, I was stuck in a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn and was going absolutely insane. So I was like, got to do something, and that's when I got back into the cards. So that's a very brief summary as to myself and how I got back in.
So when you first got in there, Ben, I have to ask you because I know talking prior and all the we've had out of anyone in the card hobby that I've messaged with, it's probably us because I looked back, I was trying to find our prior chats, and it's insane over 1 week how many how many messages we have. But I was going to ask, I don't know if I know fully let's call it like your high level journey of like where you came in, what you were kind of buying, and then if you had steps along the way between where you are now. Are you able to kind of isolate that maybe between the different stepping stones in your journey? I'd love to hear what that's been like for the last 3 years here.
Yeah, sure. So when I first started, I had literally no idea what I was doing. I just started listening to any podcasts that I could find, anything to basically educate myself. I just started going back into football in, I would say, probably like the late 90s to the 2010, 2011 timeframe, because that's when I watched football the most and I had the most memories of it. And then I met other collectors like Caleb Power Wheels, who you've had on. I've known him for over 3 years now. Mad Mike, he's a Joe Montana collector. I just started messaging with them on IG, and initially I was just, ironically, I had a very small and modest Tom Brady PC that I was starting to put together, and I was just buying cards on eBay, trying to get them cheap, flip them to fund my own PC. And then once Brady won the Super Bowl in early 2021, his cards took off, and then at that point I was really thinking, a lot of people were showing their collections, and I was like, I don't have anything of any significance. I will never be able to get any of these cards. And I kind of decided after, talking to some of my friends that I really just kind of want to restart a new collection and try to have the best PC of that person that I can have. So, I went back and was thinking about, players I loved watching when I was growing up. And one that came to mind was LT. I've always been a huge LT fan. I was never a Chargers fan, so to speak, but I always loved watching him. He's also just a great person, someone that, I really respect. Then also too, when I started doing research at that time, he was exceedingly cheap compared to a lot of other people. So at that time, I started to start my LT collection. That's when I really dug, I dived into LT. And then later in 2021, I started my Strahan PC. And then in early 2022 is when I started Manning. So that's basically the brief version of it, so to speak.
No, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And I'll pull up an image here because I don't know if this is how I think this might be like we probably chatted prior, but when you posted this, this is like last year maybe or a year and a half ago now at this point, this image.
I don't. It might have been early this year, simply because I posted it after I got the 2011 Mosaic.
Oh,
So
that's right. Okay. So I think I was
yeah,
aware of your chase of what you were going after. And the player we're looking at is Peyton Manning. And ironically, I what you just said, like, right, you saw the Brady collectors that seemed like, you weren't going to be able to climb that mountaintop, in a short period of time. But what you did in, I guess it sounds like less than 2 years is incredible, where you kind of sounds like went from zero to, I would say, the best shiny quality collection that I'm aware of for Peyton Manning. So I'd love if you could tell me about the significance of what we have in front of us. Maybe describe any of the cards you talk about, so somebody who's just listening, can understand what we're seeing in front of us. I'd love to hear the inspiration here for this photo and kind of how you dove into this lane of your collection.
oh yeah, sure, no problem. And just to clarify for the record, I definitely don't think I have the best shiny collection. I mean, all like the late '90s stuff, the PMGs, the Essential Credentials, the Rubies. I don't have any of those. Those are incredible cards as well. But so
You're right. I should have said 2000s. The stuff I
yeah.
really like. Yeah, the
So
stuff you
so
really like.
so for the podcast listeners, we're looking at my finest super short print run for Manning, which includes the O2 finest, the X Fractor at a 20, the gold refractor at a 25, and then for '05 and '06, there's the gold X fractors at a 10, and then for 10 and 11, they're the mosaic uh, refractors at a 10.
So I'm curious if you could start with maybe how did you isolate that? Like these were the six you wanted to go after, right? I know there's a lot of years, a lot of parallels. Why did these six resonate with you that you wanted to pursue them?
Sure. So again, I have to go to my hobby friends, like Caleb, Justin, Tommy, Volin NC for Justin, Tommy Toploader, Mike. After talking to them and just seeing other people's collections, like like Kevin's, everyone else's, these cards are the ones that always stuck out to me as aesthetically being the most pleasing. And also too, in combination with the scarcity, and just looking over all the years, and this would be, I would say, for like, from like say 2000 to 2011, of all the refractor shiny cards, in my opinion, I think these are the best looking ones. With Bowman, they're nice, but I used to have all the LTs, but again, kind of plain designs with Topps Chrome. They're all over the place in terms of consistency, in terms of the serial numbers, in terms of what they look like. And again, Topps Fine has definitely had some not great years, but overall, I think these years in front of us are by far the best refractors for that era.
So when you set up a chase like this, like again, I'm envisioning, myself or someone who's listening and, they have maybe a player in mind and it doesn't have to be sets particularly, right? But you have like, let's just say again, you have six cards, super short print, very, very tough to find. They don't pop up for sale. How did you decide? I guess I should put it this way. What was your game plan moving forward when you decided these were the ones you want to do? How did you even go about finding them? Especially again, knowing I know we chatted before, some of these there's never been a public sale of. So how did you even find some of these?
Sure. So I guess starting in chronological order, the O2, the gold, I got from a collector who was essentially liquidating his PC. So that's where I got a raw copy of the Manning, which I graded and got a 10. Then I also had another copy that was a 10 that I sold to Joey the E-Trader.
You had two. You
Um,
have two of these.
at one point I did,
Oh
yes.
my
Bef-
gosh, yeah,
before I knew you, so
yeah.
don't be
So
upset.
because there's
Uh,
four, and this one's interesting because there's four. I have one, you have one, Joey has one, and then
Drake as the
Drake
other.
has the other. Yeah, so those are the
Yeah.
four. That's kind of crazy.
Yep. So then after that, the next one I got was the X Fractor, and that was Chris Distress Cards. I saw on his page that he had it, and I just opened up a dialogue with him and said, "Listen, I'm thinking about starting this run. Would you be open to maybe moving it down the road?" And we had a conversation over the course of months. And by conversation, I mean I was basically harassing him like every week, just asking him to please sell it to me. So, and I think one of the reasons he decided to move it to me is just because he knew I wasn't going to flip it. He knew that I was for part of a run I was putting together. So I was able to work out a deal with Chris that included cash and then some trade. The next one I got was at the National in 2021. And, Gunther actually messaged me saying, "Hey, I have this, the '06 Gold X-Fractor PSA 9. It's a Pop 1 done higher." He's like, "This is the price." I tried to haggle with him. He said, "I'm not haggling. This is the price." So basically, at that point, I had a lot of cards that I got from this collector that was liquidating his PC. There are lots of nice stuff, like like late '90s gold refractors, early years finest. So basically, I went to a dealer at the National, sold all that stuff to that dealer, and then used that cash to get the '06 Gold X-Fractor. The next one I got was the Mosaic 2010 out of 10. I got that from Paul, World Combat. Again, he knew at that point that actually, yeah, I think he was that was the next one. So he knew at that point that I was putting the set together, and I had basically just overpaid for it. Like I knew what he paid for it very recently because I think Gunther sold it to him. So I basically just overpaid for it because I knew I was putting the set together, and I knew that there was only 10 copies. Um, and by far, I would say the most magical one on this picture is the '05 Gold X-Fractor out of 10. So this is a PSA 9. It's a Pop 1. Uh, Last time I checked, there are no other graded copies. And, in talking to Chad, who I bought it from, and I think I was also messaging with Kevin during this time period, is that there there's only been one sale of this card, or this is the only copy that has ever popped up ever. So again, at this point, I had a few of this set going. I messaged Chad, and basically over the course of a few months, I was able to. I think basically he just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to flip it, and then also too, I included a the 99 essential credentials, and then I threw cash on top. So listen, I think paid more than what market value was for it, but at the same time, I just knew that out of all the years of Topps Finest, I really love the '05 Gold X the most aesthetically pleasing. I've never seen an LT for this card. I mean, they're very hard to find. So I knew that this was basically my only chance of ever getting this card. And, and then Chad was gracious enough to let me acquire it. And, that's by far my favorite card of the six. And then ironically, the last one, the 2011 Mosaic, was just a simple eBay snipe um, from a seller who I offered to buy it from months prior at a higher price, and he told me to go scratch. And then he listed on eBay for much cheaper. And one of my buddies, Modest Cars, he messaged a group chat I'm in, and I just immediately binned it. So again, this actually only took a little over a year, which was kind of surprising. But this is by far the most satisfying collection, I guess, part of my collection I put together to date. And this is something that is irreplaceable. I mean, I don't think I would never move these cards. These are always the cards I look at when I take out my PC. I just really enjoy looking at them and just knowing it's so hard to put these together.
Do you feel like you like you mentioned, and the crazy part, and I think I mentioned at the beginning, like putting together in a little over a year, a little close to a year there, like you said. Um, One thing that comes to mind there is like I wonder if now that you've done it, I don't think that's possible again, right? Like that's the crazy thing to think about. Like the one single copy that you got was probably the only one that was hanging around, right? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think
Well,
about that?
Well, I think to Captain Kevin, I think he has all these except for the '05,
Okay.
and I think Drake has all of them except for the '05 and the '06. So other people are close. But again, I think it would just take a very. I mean, I don't know what happened to the other nine of the '05. I mean, you would think that there's some still around. I don't know if they're just in someone's binder or a box somewhere. But I mean, like for the LT, I've been chasing these cards for LT since I started my LTPC, and I've never seen an O2 X out of 20, and I've never seen a '05 Gold X out of 10. They've just never. Uh, there's one copy has sold a few times for the Gold X '05, but the last one was years ago. There's never been a public sale for the X Tractor to 20 for LT that I'm aware of. So these cards are just very hard to find. I mean, I think it would be very difficult to replicate this moving forward.
What would you say is your biggest learning lesson or two here from this from this chase? What would you say you learned now that if you were to try something similar in the future, you could apply moving forward?
I think it's just being respectful to everyone and just, creating relationships. I mean, basically every single one of these cards came from a relationship that I had with someone in the hobby that, I've had, basically since I got back in. And I think just people want to know that a Grail really unique card like this is going to someone that's going to appreciate it and who's not going to turn around and flip it immediately. So I think it's just building relationships. I mean, people have to know that you're, a decent person and you're not going to try to take advantage of them. I think also too, just coming in strong when you in terms of an offer, like knowing that you're going to probably have to overpay for these to a certain extent. Like obviously you don't want to go crazy, but at the same time, with some of these cards, you may never get another shot. I mean, the good thing is like for the 2011 Mosaic, that same seller had another copy that he posted like a day or two later. And I know Drake got that one, so Drake was looking for that one for a while. So sometimes when one of these sells, other ones pop up, but in general, they're quite hard to find.
Then one other question that comes back maybe to that '06 there. I know part of what we talked about before even the call and what I'm aware that you had done this in the past and you're really happy about it, sounds like. But just the consolidation, like turning quality or quantity, like you said, you buy a collection of a bunch of really, I'm sure, cards that you enjoy looking at, and then you turn that now into one. Have you ever regretted doing that? Is there ever a time where you're like, you don't prefer the quality over the quantity, like you wish you could go back and take the cards that you had traded into it or kind of in a way traded into it?
No, I mean, I have not. I mean, but again, I think that's a personal choice. I know some collectors who, prefer just to have a lot of cards, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, I've always been, and that's just my personality. Other aspects of my life as well is I like to be concentrated, in a few things. So with cards, I think that was going to be my natural endpoint, no matter what. And a lot of the cards, basically, there's only a few cards I can think of that I kind of regret selling, but basically, every other card is a card that I know I can get back at some point in time. A lot of them were at a 50, at a 99, 100. So my rationale is always if I can consolidate, say, 10 to 20 cards that I know I can get back if I ever want them into one that I may not get another shot at, I'll make that choice, every day of the week.
Awesome. That totally makes sense. What's awesome too about these cards in front of us that I'm aware of since I've followed these sets, there's only one on here that's ever come to auction, which I think is just that O2 gold. I don't think any of these have ever gone to auction since I've followed it in the last 2, 3 years, right? There's none of these have ever come to public auction.
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, you won the gold, the O2 gold when I think it was a BGS 95 that you won.
Yeah, yep, yeah. And then I crossed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only other one I think that has sold publicly was I think Brett's brother sniped
Oh, yes.
the '06 Gold X when it was listed at like 3 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but I think those are the only, and then Drake got the 11 Mosaic. But I think to my knowledge, those are the only sales that I know of, since I've been back in.
Probably tells you you're buying the right stuff. I don't know. Maybe just me, but
Hey, they're also pretty cars. I mean, that's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, next couple cards, I'd love if we could run through some of these. I know you mentioned some of these are like an honorable mention, and I feel like a lot of the questions I'm going to and want to ask you tie to a lot of these cards. I feel like it's a natural way to just keep flowing with the cards here.
Yeah, sure. So the one on the left is a 2004 finest. It's a gold X-fractor. I don't know why PSA labels it that the way it does, but it's a gold X-fractor. It's at a 5. So, that is the rarest for LT. It's the rarest, to my knowledge, finest of refractor from his San Diego playing days. For like '04 finest is a little weird. I know it's not everyone's favorite year, and I definitely agree with that. But for certain players, like for Manning, Brady, LT, Moss, their gold refractor is not serial numbered. I think it's out of 50. And then they also have the gold X fractor, which is out of 5. So this one just popped up, I think, about a year ago when I was on vacation. This is the first public sale, I think, in like 15 years. So I just immediately binned that one.
Are you on the beach here while you're looking on eBay or something? What's up with that?
No, we just got back from a hike in North Carolina. So I
Oh,
just
okay.
was,
Yeah.
and which is very interesting is that guy, the guy on eBay, bought a collection out. So like, a few of my other buddies got like these gold X fractors for their players. So it was really cool.
Interestingly, so like, what's the story here with I see these, this is like a die cut. I mean, not die
Yep.
cut, but the edges. I don't know what you call the, what are the edges like this called? Do you know what this is called?
I think it would be like perforate or die cut. I
Okay.
think that would be the term. But yeah, it has like the little perforations on the edge. And for some of the players, the only difference between the base and the X Factor, I think, is the actual etching at the edge of the card. But for like LT and Brady and Moss, there you have a base gold which has just normal edges and it's a flat refractor look. But then the gold X Factor is kind of a completely different card in a way. So that I think that's what makes it particularly cool for the players in '04 who have the X Factor that's out of 5, because I know some X Factors out of like 150 or 175.
Do you know where this card, how was it inserted to? Are you aware of like how it was pulled or anything like that?
I don't know for this year. I do
I
not
wish we had
know.
documentation on that. I always wonder because like some of these, it's like they look so funky. I can't imagine them being in a pack, but they probably were. But yeah,
I don't know for this year.
kind of interesting. I always wonder that. So what's the other card we have here on the right? I mean, obviously, looking at it, this is an amazing one. But I'd love to hear the story here of like how you isolated you wanted this one, and maybe where you found it.
Sure. So for those on podcasts, this is 2006 National Treasures. This is a shield, NFL shield for LaDanian Tomlinson. I just really I like the shield cards. I think it's cool to have the shield on the front. And, for LT, he has a lot of, with the way the jersey, the makeup of the jersey, there's tons of three color patches and things like that. So just getting the NFL shield, I think for any player is super unique. And, I've done a few times that I've gone through the Beckett checklist to try to estimate, how many, you know, game used shield cards there are for LT from his San Diego playing days. And I think there's about 30 or so. So I've always, whenever one of these has popped up, I always go after it to the best that I can. And I just really particularly love the design on this one. And this was just a recent eBay purchase. I have not actually even posted this to my IG yet, but I would like this because this is now my third shield card that I have for LT. So I'm almost trying to add these when I can.
So in terms of a hierarchy, like if you own three of them, or if you have other opportunities to add more, what do you think kind of distinguishes these amongst themselves? Like, do you have a tier list of like, okay, I have the three, I like this one the most, here's why, that kind of thing? Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I think that the top would be like the ultimate collection of the exquisites. I
And
know
that's
we're
because
self.
of the set, right? Not necessarily design, but because of the legacy of the set, would you say? Or
I think it's a set, but also the design.
Mhm.
Some of them have autos, but I think a lot of that has to do with the sets themselves. But in general, I like the '06 doesn't have the best shield window, and ideally, I would like the shield. I would like a full equipment shield. I've only ever seen one for LT. All the other ones are like little smaller patch windows, but I would also like to get at some point in time one that has an on-card auto.
Mhm.
But again, just one hasn't really popped up that I've wanted. So it's slim pickings for these. I mean, if you can get a shield, a game used shield patch for any player that you're collecting, I would definitely highly recommend it because they're hard to come by, and I personally like the look of them.
So, question for you. I was going to ask, like, so when I think of LT and some of these, like Marshall Falk, like some of these running backs, and not in a way, not saying this hype them up, but like they seem very underappreciated for the in terms of the legacy. And like if you talk to a football person, like maybe who's involved with the league, and you ask about LT Marshall Falk, they'd probably talk your ear off about how the great they were and important for the game and everything. Then in terms of the hobby, I feel like that doesn't resonate. Like I don't see enough of it. Like I see you, and there's definitely other LT collectors, but like Marshall Falk, there's definitely some too. But I guess when I compare to what like modern running backs, the prices of these things, like it's just absurd. So I'd love to understand, why do you think these guys don't get appreciated? What is the mainstream? What are people missing?
I have no idea. I mean, when I first started, it was really um, Mike. He has always been a longtime LT collector. Him and I first bonded over LT actually. So, and then as I've been on IG longer, there have been a decent amount more people who have been collecting LT, and I've actually met a few longtime collectors on there. So there definitely is a collector base for him. I just don't know if they're as vocal as you know the Brady's or the Mannings or whatever. But also too, I just don't know. Running backs and certain wide receivers just don't get hobby love. I don't know if there's really like a logical explanation for it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's like I'm trying to think too from the wide receiver perspective, but like even like I don't know, just make this up, like Larry Fitzgerald, right? I feel like I see For every Larry Fitzgerald card I see, I might see 10 Kelvin Johnsons. For every LT card I see, I might see, just making this up, but like 10 Emmett Smith or something. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it is like that for some reason. I don't have a hypothesis really either.
And I do wonder too, to just thinking about it is, LT's rookie year was '01, so he missed all like the late '90s stuff. He
Mm,
wasn't any PMG Essential Credential Rubies. So I wonder if that has something to do with it because like the kind of the era where he was in for San Diego from like '01 to '09, the sets are really cool, obviously, but I definitely think like the late '90s stuff, just from like a set perspective, really, I wonder if that anchors people, because obviously with Sanders and Emmett, they're in all those amazing sets. And also too, I think maybe just people are starting to. I definitely have seen a rise in its prices over the last 2 years. So I
hmm
definitely think people are starting to catch on. And also too, I think in general, I think a lot of the RB statistics will be hard to replicate moving forward. Even like looking at just besides LT, like if you look at some of these players' stats in terms of the receptions, like I mean LT had I think it was his third season. I think he had 1,000. Oh, he was the first running back with 1,000 rushing yards and 100 catches. So I mean, I think it's going to be hard to replicate some of these stats moving forward.
Especially like healthiness and usage rate, like stuff like that. I just
Yes,
don't see the legacy staying around like he did. It's awesome.
agree
I'll go to the
completely.
next one here. I think we have another honorable mention. This is a different player than we've talked about so far, but you mentioned that you collect him. So I'd love to learn more about this card.
Yep. So this is Michael Strahan. Obviously living in New York, I've been a Giants fan my entire life. Sadly for most of it, and so some of the best, probably one of the best like sports watching memories I have is when Strahan won, beat sadly the Patriots and ruined Tom Brady's perfect season, and that was Michael's last game, and that was just such a great moment. I was in my last year of school. I remember watching that entire playoff run, and just for to see him win a championship in his last game after sticking around for all those years was just such an awesome moment. And when I started collecting him, I just wanted to get the best cards of him that I could. And the card up on the screen is actually his 99 rubies, which is out of 30. And I really like this card. It has to be under the right light, but definitely in this image on the screen, it's definitely a gorgeous card.
It looks like snow is falling. Like I don't even know how else to describe it, but it's just like just I don't know, a beautiful Christmas morning. That's what this looks like from the photo.
And the thing is too with Strahan is that he's not in a lot of the nice sets. Like he's in some of the nice sets in the late '90s, but he has a '98 and '99 PMG, but he's not in '97. He's not. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have an essential credentials. He doesn't have a brilliant skull 24 karat. So he's not in a lot of these like super high end sets. So just to get anything for him in one of these nicer sets, I always try to grab.
So in terms of like, I know you're someone who's very, very clear with yourself, or at least in terms of when you add something, it seems like you have pretty strong boundaries. Like it's a big deal if a card, I would imagine, goes into your PC. So what about this one was enough to where you're like, okay, this card is definitely coming in, but then let's say some of the similar maybe types of sets in this era, maybe some of them you don't say I want to go after this, and why the Star Rubies here?
Yeah, I think just like it's an important set, and also too, just aesthetically, I really like this card a lot. So I think it's just what I like to do is I like to try to make a list of cards I'm going after for at this point LT and Strahan. I have a list on my phone. I try to review it like maybe twice a year just to keep it updated. And I try to really stick to that list unless something comes up that I was completely unaware of or like I changed my mind. But that's basically why I try to. That's how I try to curate things just to prevent. Because when I first started, I was buying constantly, and I just ended up with a bunch of stuff that I could care less about. Then I had to go through the effort of selling it all. So I wanted to try to avoid that again. So right now, I just have a list that I try to stick to.
That makes sense. Do you ever find like one fear I have if I ever I'm sure again hopefully get to like a really point where it's super focused on quality. Do you ever find yourself lacking in the mail days feeling and you like are you're missing it a little bit then you make a buy that you end up like why did I do that? Do you ever do that?
I do definitely from time to time, of course, but
Yeah.
I try to. I think that in like some of my other friends have done this as well. Like I'm not the first one doing this, obviously. Like Caleb has been doing this over the past few years with his Brady stuff. I think once you start doing it, like I found that I really enjoyed it, and I actually enjoyed like waiting for the next one to pop up, and when it does pop up, it's something I'm really going to go after that I can't stop thinking about like during the entire auction or whatever. So I think it's also just a personal preference. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's nothing wrong with however you collect, but I just have found this to be the one that I like the most.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I love the insight here because I think it's a unique way. I think a lot of us, probably, like I love the I need the mail day every week, or I start to get agitated and want to go pick something up. But I respect the self control that you have here. That's awesome.
Well, I'm older, Austin. So
Yeah,
I guess there's some good things that come with
yeah.
it.
There you go. All right, so now we have a Mount Rushmore that is absolutely incredible. I would love to hear more about the cards here. Feel free to start with whatever one you want, but maybe again, just a reminder to describe the card like you have been, just so people know what we're
Yeah,
talking
sure.
about here.
So all the way to the right is the 2001 Bowman Chrome Gold Refractor for LT out of 99, and it's a BGS 10. So the reason why I put this necessarily wouldn't be my top four. If I had my own internal list, I don't think this would be a top four. But I wanted to put this on just to talk about because this was like the first big card that I bought in early 2021, and this was really when I decided to go all in on LT and really start the collection. I remember selling a bunch of cards. I remember the deals I did with people to raise the funds for it. And this has been kind of an anchor card, for my LTPC. And I'm not a huge grade guy, but with this one being a BGS 10, it's the only BGS 10 of this card. Then also too, I would say his other really good rookie card is the '01 Topps Chrome Black Refractor of 100. There's no BGS 10 copy for that one. There's two PSA 10s. So arguably, this is like one of his best rookie cards. So, and again, this really started me down the path to collecting LT, which I really enjoy to this day. I mean, I love collecting his cards. I love going back and watching his YouTube highlights and things like that. So that's why that one's on there.
So
Um,
are these are numbered out of 99 then for the rookies as
correct.
well here? Okay.
Yep.
And so when this one pops up, what's going on in your head when you're in 2001? You see this one pop up, a BGS 10. Like, how do you even approach and think about this card? Is it like an immediate I have to have it, or did you mull it over for a while before you jumped really hard on it?
If I recall correctly, I think I thought about it for a little bit because I had started to buy LT like right early in 2021. I was buying his gold refractors, for Bowman Chrome, things like that, nothing really huge. And then this one, I think I found this through IG maybe, or I forget how I found it, but I basically had to make a decision as to, at that point, I sold the remaining Brady stuff that I had left, and I sold some other things, basically just to consolidate it into this card. So it definitely was a process. I basically worked out a deal with the guy and said, if I can raise these funds in the next 2 weeks, this is the price. So I definitely took my time on this one.
That makes sense. And then was there any fear on your end? I know you're not someone like you self just described, not someone who's kind of I'll call it like a grade snob. Like I find myself being that sometimes. Like I just want the 10 for PSA and nothing else. But then, I've kind of fallen away from that a little bit. But did you find yourself looking at this and thinking, well, crap, why don't I just go get a 9 or an 8 when I might be paying way up just because it has a different number at the top there?
I definitely have thought that. I think that every time that big card pops up, and I'm like, I have to sell something to pay for this new one. So this one may not be long for the collection, like super long term, just for that reason. Like you can get a PSA 9, for probably a little over $1,000 at this point. So it's not a super expensive card if I wanted to downgrade, but that thought crosses my mind a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know, and like looking at it, that's how do I say, like I love the shock factor of this card, like just looking at it and you see the 10 and knowing these sets, knowing these years, and I'm thinking, how the hell did that happen? Like how do you,
It was graded a long time ago, and I did
yeah,
actually clean the case since that photo was posted. So it's that scratch on the front there that was on the case, and that's gone now. But yeah, it's a beautiful card. I mean, the thing is too is I always think, oh yeah, it's just a label. But then you look at the card, you're like, I cannot find a single thing wrong with this
no,
card. And I've held a few others in hand at shows, and I could always, you could always see like, oh, the centering is a little off. There was like this with it and that, and I don't know. Maybe now that I have this one, I won't get rid of it, but it's definitely a struggle, in terms of, when do you downgrade and under what circumstances do you do it?
I feel like that's also the what you just kind of described, the responsible way to approach the grade and the card is like, I mean, like everyone's okay, the graders are experts, right? But like to sanity check for yourself to ensure that if I were to happen to have to, whatever reason, this was regraded, do you think it would actually match the grade that it says? Like, I don't know. Do you find yourself doing that? Like, I've been on an auction this week. It's a set I know is very hard to get a 10 on, but the card matched it. But then sometimes I'll watch those auctions and I'm like, I swear if I graded that tomorrow, that was not there's no chance, right? Do you ever find yourself doing that as well?
There have been a few times where I specifically remember having the '01 X-Fractor for Bowman Chrome for LT, and it was graded PSA 10, and I could like, there was edging issues on the back, and it was like, I was like, "How the hell did this get a 10?" So there definitely are, times where you get a card, you're like, "This should probably not be graded a 10," or whatever.
Yeah, that always affects, and then I'm like, "Ah, I'll just wait for a 9 or whatever, or I'll, that sort of thing, because I'm basically holding a 9 anyway, is how I feel about it
Yeah, of
sometimes.
course.
What's the next card you want to touch on here?
Sure. So the next one is a Michael Strahan card. It's a 2005 Leaf certified material, mirror black. It's a shield card. So the reason why I put this one on the Mount Rushmore, so to speak, is simply because I think there's only four shield cards for Strahan during his playing years. From when I look through the checklist and everything, so just to have one of them is like super important. Again, because Strahan isn't in that many great sets, so just to have a game used NFL Shield from his playing years is just something that is very important.
Could you talk about the importance of Strahan maybe to you and then like in the grand scheme of the NFL? Because it's a guy where I know the name, I know his ranking on history, but beyond that, not been a Giants fan and him being right before really my time, I love you could just touch on like the importance of him as a player and maybe why he is such a firm spot in your PC here.
Yeah, sure. So, being born in the mid '80s, basically, as soon as I can remember watching football, Strahan was on the Giants his entire career. And basically, all my memories of watching football as a kid, Strahan was on that team. He was, I would argue, the second best defensive player or probably player ever to play for the Giants behind Lawrence Taylor.
Hmm.
And, he was, besides his, obviously, people debate the sack record, understandably so, but he was also a great run stopper. I mean, he was just he could do it all. He was a great leader, and also just for me specifically, when I played football, I played defensive end. So if I was watching the game, I would always be watching, Strahan to see what he was doing, try to learn anything from it. As corny as that sounds, but yeah, just like he was like the one constant throughout all those years, on the Giants, and he was arguably probably the best player for most of those years.
How late did he play with them? Was he on that second New England versus New England Super
No,
Bowl or
he
just the first one?
nope, he retired after the first one.
Okay. Okay.
So
Wow, what a way to go out though.
yeah, I think he played 15 years, all for the Giants. So yeah, I mean, he's just and also too, like he's a funny guy. Obviously, he's now a, a celebrity, so to speak. But yeah, he was just someone that I always remember watching. Basically every week during my childhood and throughout my through college. Until the time they retired.
Could you also one other question on this card? Could you tell me maybe a little bit more about the Leaf certified materials? It's like a set I've heard people bring up on here before. I think maybe in particular because of the patches. Is there a huge importance to this set, or it just happens to be you have this one because of the
I
shield
th-
here?
well, it's I like the sets in general, and I think I could be wrong, but I think it was one of the first sets that really had the shield. There may have been other ones before it, but
But I feel
the
like this is
Leafs.
one you see fairly often with the shields. I guess maybe that's why I'm
Correct.
thinking of it
Yes.
now. Okay.
Yep. Correct. Yeah. So like for LT, I've never seen any of these pop up ever. So they're pretty hard to find. I mean, and I like this year for the '05 because it has a little bit of a shine to it. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's got that refractor design that just perfectly fits in with your rest of your
I,
PC.
I need to get out of the SGC slab though. I need to do that ASAP. I
Just
don't know
for
why,
the
but
looks wise, you prefer a different one?
yeah, I think I'll probably submit it to PSA at some point.
Mhm. Do you sometimes this is an SGC 8, do you ever just one touch it, or do you wanna keep it in a slab just for protection type of thing?
I'll probably keep it in one touch for a while. I may not grade it for maybe until like the next national if I go get it done in person or something like that. I
Mhm.
generally don't grade that much, so it's probably one thing I need to expand my horizons on. But I'll probably keep it in one touch for a while.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. What's the next card here you want to touch on?
Sure. So the next one is for LT, the 2006 Finest Gold X-Fractor out of 10. It's a PSA 9. It's a pop one. There is a PSA 10 copy out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is just again, I'm a Finest simp. I mean, I love these years of Finest, and I got this from Mike, Joe Montana collector, after basically 2 years of me harassing him like intermittently for every few months. And and again, it was just he knows that it's not going anywhere. It's for my PC, and I just made a very strong offer, and also included the base gold, and so he got a replacement card. Actually, no, I included a Terrell Owens card in as well that I got for Comp C that I thought he may like. So yeah, it's I guess this is just a lesson too of knowing what like I in my IG folder I have just I save a bunch of posts if it's a card that I may want or just an example of it, just so I know where cards are. And I try to like if I can see a card that may be trade bait for someone, I try to snag it. And this is one of these instances where I just grabbed an older Terrell Owens card that was super rare that I thought that Mike may want. So yeah, we worked out a trade plus cash deal for this, and this is definitely probably my favorite LT card. And it depends on the day of the week, but this is I really love this card.
What is an intermittent harassment message? What does that entail?
Oh, so basically, like, maybe once every few months, I'll just message someone saying, "Hey, just reminder if you ever decide to move this, just let me know." Just to let them know that I'm interested.
Mhm.
But with Mike, since I was, closer with him, I would really be like, "Come on, man! Like, just like, what do you want? Like, just give me a number." And basically, he told me, he's like, "This is the number. If I don't hear back from you in 20 minutes, like, I may never sell this again." So I basically just have a choice, but it was a fair price, and I love this card.
So remind me, do you need the O5, of course, here still, right?
Yep.
Correct?
I
Yep.
need the '05 Gold X. I need the '02 Finest X out of 20. Both I have never seen for LT. And I actually
Okay.
don't know where any copies are either, which really sucks.
Are any at auction houses? Or sorry, not auction houses, grading companies have ever been graded?
I'm trying to think here. I don't think there are. I don't think
Wow.
so.
That's just insane to think about for 20 years, 20 over 20 years later that we're still sitting like that. That's just insane.
I know it's weird. I don't know how it happens.
So one question that I wanted to ask you that I think you touched on a little bit earlier, but you kind of mentioned about having when you first started doing some things to maybe fund this endeavor in terms of like buying some collections and selling. How much of your growth as your collection here would you say is that versus just being super deliberate about kind of chipping away and saving a little bit of money here and there? You know what I mean? Like, has it been a mix of kind of buying cards and then when you find the right person maybe selling it to buy stuff you prefer more, like how much is that has tied in here?
Yeah, sure. So I would say probably 90% has been just from buying collections, things like that, and minimal actual input from my other budget, so to speak,
Yep.
which is just very, very, very lucky because um, before the podcast, I was thinking about the one day with Brett back in early 2022, and on that one, I was talking to him about this guy that I found who was basically liquidating his collection, and basically over the course of a year, I bought tons of cards from that guy. And again, that was just very lucky. And that was just because I just asked him, "Hey, do you have anything else?" Like I saw that
Mhm.
I bought a car from him, and he said, "Yeah, I have some other stuff." So I always say I always just say like, if you're on eBay or something, just always ask, "Do you have anything else that I may be interested in?" Because I was very lucky and fortunate to find this guy who was selling, just he just wanted to get rid of it. So, and a lot of the sales I made were to my friends, which is great because a lot of these cards ended up in the right home, and it was really nice to see that.
So do you kind of view that side of because I didn't realize that was I guess I knew like you said you bought and sold collection, but that's actually how I've funded too. It's kind of like I don't know if you view it the same way, but it's like I have this sandbox over here of cards that I don't particularly myself want to collect like super long term, but I know if I buy them at the right price at a show or online, and then you can give somebody a pretty good deal and they're getting a card they really want. Meanwhile, turn that money into like what you said, and you kind of talked about these cards that you're never, ever, ever, ever going to see again, more than likely. Do you kind of view it that way too, where you have this like two different lanes or like, what do you call it? Like avenues that you kind of play in here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was definitely more prevalent in 2020, 2021, where I think people were just going through their attics, listing stuff on eBay for these buy it now prices without really knowing what they were listing. And
Hmm.
I think that's changed dramatically. I think it's nearly impossible to go on eBay these days and get like a super steal unless you're just like really, really lucky. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely how I've funded almost my entire collection is just, um, trying to find cards that I think are under, that should be priced higher and resell them at a fair market value. And again, I think also the important thing about doing that is, especially if you're on IG, is that if you do that, you create relationships with people where, if you sell to them, they know that you're selling at a fair price, you're easy to deal with. And I think that helps moving forward. If you end up want to buy something from them, or if you need like references, they can be references for you to someone else.
And what's interesting, and I think I'm going to assume part of the success you had is because I would imagine you did a lot of research on these sets, right? It sounds like you probably caught some buy it now listings where stuff hadn't sold in years or maybe ever. And I'm guessing you knew the sets pretty well. So you kind of, a lot of other people are going to stop and try to look at what they've sold for. And you can say, no, I know what this is worth and this is way too cheap. I'm going to buy it. That's kind of how that worked?
I definitely think so. I mean, to like, listen, there's
You do
people
your
who have
own
been in.
work with the research, like that paid off, you'd say.
Yeah, I think so because again, I've been only doing this for 3 years and change, but I'm very focused on this one time frame and only doing football, and so like if you do it long enough, you know which cards are important for every single player. So there's just some cards you see listed that are just too cheap. The other thing too, which is nice, that is then if you're on IG and you have buddies who collect that player, you can just give it to that. I mean, you could funnel it to the right person, so to speak.
Mhm. Awesome.
But yeah, it's definitely I think important finding a niche and sticking to it.
Awesome. And then the final card here is an absolute beauty that, if anyone's listening, please sell me your copy. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, yeah, so I already talked about this. So this is a 2005 gold X Factor for Manning, for Peyton Manning. Again, I don't know how much you want to say again, but this is just by far probably my favorite card in my collection. Uh, I, I waffle back and forth between which of your finest I like the most.
I was going to
I
ask if you had a tier list. That was going to be my first question on this one, was if you had a like,
uh,
these couple are like tier one for you, these couple are kind of whatever.
it's tough because we're in one of my group chats. We were debating this today. This shows how nerdy we are between if we like '05 or '06 more. Um, at this point I like '05 more because I just like the color differentiation. I mean, you can see it between if you're watching this on video, you can see it between the Manning and the LT. I like obviously basically the pure gold on the '06, but I think just having the different colors on the '05 makes it pretty cool to look at. I also really like the '02 X Fractor. That's a really cool card. With like the kind of blue and the shimmers. I don't know. It's like asking which one of the kids you like the most. The mosaics, I mean, they're obviously not gold, but they have some incredible shine. And again, I think if you ask anyone who collects these, it's kind of hard to. I would say they probably waffle back and forth.
I'm gonna pitch mine to you, and you tell me like what you think. So mine is tier one, and this is just anyone listening, do whatever you want, but this is what I think. I like '06, '05, '02. Those are my like 100% my like top three in no particular order. And then I like '03 is pretty cool, some of these other ones. But then I think outside of that, I'm like, it's not real interesting to me outside of that on the other designs too much.
What about the mosaics?
Yeah, actually true. True, true, true. Yeah, so 2010, 11 are probably up there just strictly because of that. And so I was gonna ask Ben here, like, I guess maybe I'll explain what I've done and see if you've ever done this. Where like I know that logically I'm not going to be able to find some of these cards for the main guy I collect as of like today. I can't go find a Manning that you're talking about right now. But like I went and picked up maybe some other players and like I found that's kind of a way to like learn the set, even if it's not like a super mainstream guy who's like hobby relevant. Like for instance, that '02 X Fractor you mentioned, I just picked up a Kurt Warner, which ironically in video it's like right above me if you can see it. But like I actually am learning that I love that when I buy a player that I still care about and it's way more budget friendly. And then now I know, oh, okay, if the Manning pops up, I know 100% I'm going for that. Like, have you ever done that with other players at all?
I don't think I've bought cards, but I definitely have. I've harassed or asked buddies just to send videos,
Ah,
and
that's a good point.
everyone makes fun of me for this because I guess I do this too much. But like if I'm going after, like for instance, the LT, the '01 Essential Credentials, the now whatever the one is out of 29, his rookie recently came up for auction. It was the first. I've never seen a copy in hand, so I messaged a bunch of people who had other players and had them send me videos. So I was able to look at it to see if it was something I would like. So I definitely think what either that or what you do is smart because then you at least know like, do you actually like this card before you spend a lot of money on it?
The video idea is so much smarter. Sometimes I get to these auctions, I'm like bidding, and I'm thinking, wow, like one day ago, I should have just reached out to somebody to see if they could send me a video because this scan, I can't tell if this is going to look awesome or not.
It's Yeah, I mean, I have to say it is definitely helpful, like, especially on this Essential Credentials one they just sold. I mean, it's a really nice card, but it's doesn't have the shine of the other years, like, it's kind of a weird year, and, I was glad that I saw the video from other people of it because I had, like, a certain number I was willing to pay on it, and if I hadn't seen that video, I probably would have overpaid and probably would have been upset with the card once I got it.
Yeah, get out of my hair. I'm going to go put you in the bottom of the case. You're going to hide down there for a little bit.
Yeah, it happens, man, it happens.
Awesome. So Ben, I was wondering too if we could wrap up here like a fast five. 15 minutes. We're on 52 minutes. This was literally like I feel like it's been like 15. That was very quick. But it's probably because it's cards that I personally absolutely love. So maybe that's why.
Exactly. So hit me.
So first question is give me let's zoom in 20 years to the future. In your ideal situation, what would you like your PC to look like? Like let's talk if you don't mind, like a high level, and you, of course, you don't know, but maybe quantity and like type and like that sort of thing. What are you envisioning? Like, where do you want to work towards?
Well, I mean, ideally, I would love to find these missing finds for LT. I mean, I would definitely want to put those cards together, and I think over time, I just really want to just add as many Grail cards for these players as I can. Like for right now, for Manning, um, I forget if I said this before we started recording, but I kind of got to the point where I was picking up some of his other cards, but it just wasn't like I'm never going to be at a level of some of these other collectors, like in our chat, who would just like no matter how much time or money I put into it, I would never be anywhere near them. So for Manning right now, I'm basically just stopping where I'm at right now. I'm very happy with that part of the PC, but for LT and Strahan, I just really want to add as many Grail cards as I can for them over time. I mean, if you go through the Beckett list, there's tons of supers for LT that have never popped up. I mean, we were talking about the Leaf certified materials. I've never seen any one of those shields. So I would like to just maybe have like maybe 20 to 30 of the best cards of each player that I can have for those two.
That's awesome. And do you envision adding new players at some point? I,
You know, I
of course,
I
if you had them
met
in mind, you'd probably do it today. But just curious.
Well, no, it's a fair question because at one point I very briefly dabbled in Bruce Smith, just because again, I defensive line when I was in high school, I really liked that position, and he was someone that just really didn't get much hobby love. So I actually dabbled in him for maybe like 4 months or so, but it just got too much for just adding that extra player for me. So I shut that down. But yeah, I mean, depending on where I am, in my life financially, maybe like I just get tired of just doing what I am now, but, yeah, I can definitely see myself adding someone potentially down the road.
Awesome.
I
Um,
I would love to I would love to
oh,
do
go ahead.
someone from, like, the late '90s, like,
Mm.
to get in all those awesome sets, like, not Manning or Moss because 'cause they're super expensive, but, that's why I really wish Strahan was in some of these nicer sets.
Yeah, I relate to you on that because Manning and Moss, I collect them and it's awesome. They're both well traveled. I'm not catching a lot of these people ever, unless I again hit the lottery or I get to be CEO at my company or something. But regardless, but I wonder too, like what players I could look back on, like you maybe said, where they're guys who are a little underappreciated that you could get like some of the best stuff and they mean something to you. That would be the last part's the hard part because I didn't watch during that era, so that's the tricky part.
Yeah, that is the hard part. I mean, I know some of my buddies, they do, like, they collect, certain teams from that, like, their team collectors. I just haven't
Mhm.
gotten into that yet in my collecting journey. Maybe I will someday.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. And then second question here, you already kind of had hinted at this. Are there any cards that come to mind that you actually regret selling because just you haven't been able to find them back and you tried getting them back or anything like that?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind specifically is when Justin Vollencard NC was putting together his 98 PMG run. I sold him my Strahan copy that I had. And the reason I sold it is because it is like the dumbest picture I've ever seen with Strahan like falling backwards into a mountain. It makes no sense. There's all these other great from the 98 set where there's these awesome skyscrapes and yada yada yada, but like for Strahan it was just so stupid. And I sold it to Justin when he was putting the set together, but then 6 months later I was like, damn it, I probably shouldn't have sold it to him. He ended up moving it when he shut down that part of his PC wing. But yeah, that's probably like one that comes to mind is, even though I don't like the picture of it, it's such an important card for him, and that I would like to get it back if I could.
Makes sense. So third question here. If what is your favorite hobby outside of collecting cards? How about that?
Oh god, I really don't have many. I mean, uh, I like to hike with my wife. We have a dog who's 3 now, so we spend a ton of time with him. Um, I do some like investing, stock picking stuff. But yeah, other than that, I'm kind of a simple person, I guess. I probably spend too much time on cards. I guess that's what that tells you.
No, you'll be a historian over time or something. That's like that can be your second career there after we don't need
Yeah.
money anymore. We're retired. Fourth question here. Would you ever move past these kind of 2010s? Like you have the mosaics like 2010, 2011. Do you ever envision stepping later on? Like, do you ever have that come to mind, like some of the Prism Golds or anything like that?
That's a fair question. For Manning, if it wasn't so expensive, I probably would. I just don't want to be putting that type of money into it right now. For LT right now, I'm just sticking to his San Diego playing years, so from '01 to '09. I do have one mosaic from 2010 of him in the Jets uniform, and every time I look at it, I want to throw up. But leaving that aside, right now I'm just doing playing years for LT, and for right now for Manning, I only have besides those 6, I do have the 2012 Pulsar of him out of 10 in the Broncos jersey. Uh, but there's only one card I ever regret not getting for LT that was not a playing year, and that was his 2013 Select Gold out of
I
10,
knew you were gonna say that because we've
which
talked about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
which was just sitting on eBay for a long time. I think back in 2021 for like $90 or $100, and I just should have bought it. But right now I don't see myself doing that. It's not necessarily that I don't have anything against non-playing years. It's just that it's just a nice, easy restriction for myself so that I don't go overboard on spending.
Yeah, and I always like it's to me the hard part is like I see like the 2022 like black finite prism whatever, and then it wouldn't be so bad if the price was reasonable. Then I see the price, I'm like, whoa, I know what I could get for that. Like that's actually playing. That's always kind of what scares me off a little bit.
Yeah, and they can print, like other people say all the time, they can print them forever. So it's
Mhm.
nice just to have. I mean, for me anyway, it's just nice to have a natural like bookend.
Yeah, yeah, kind of some closure there in terms of not worrying. And also, like I feel like you don't worry about what's happening today. Like how they're
Oh
printing or what
yeah,
they're doing. It's
hmm
kind of a nice peace of mind thing there too.
yeah, exactly.
So fifth question here. If you had to start from zero, let's say you never got into the hobby and you were starting today, but you have the knowledge you have now, would you kind of do everything the same way you've done it? Or is there any other way you would have approached this that maybe you didn't get a chance to just because were going already in different lanes when you started?
That's a good question. I would probably do it very similar to the way that I did. I mean, one thing that I may have done differently is if I saw a super rare card of another player pop up, a Hall of Famer who I probably would have grabbed those more often than I did, just because they're good trade bait, and they're probably easy to move if I wanted to consolidate into like my PC player. So that's probably like the main thing I would have done differently is maybe be a little bit more broader, if I'm trying to acquire cards to fund the PC.
Awesome. Totally makes sense. I appreciate this, Ben. That was super, super fun. A great first time talking face to face. Love learning about your collection here. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate everything you're doing. Keep it up.